We never know where life will lead us or what may hinder us along the way. But while every day can feel like one big question mark, it doesn't have to. With the right insights, strategies, and solutions from Western and Southern Financial Group, together we can look ahead to leave the unknown behind.
I mean, what's that football focus doing? Last week they had Brady. This week they got Brady.
We're literally doing it differently from everybody else.
As a matter of fact, moving forward from this point on, I will not make reference to PFF.
Ready to get into it?
Yeah.
All right. We're going team by team.
I would be very careful about slinging stone.
Am I going to get sued?
We got legal on this?
I like football season, and all the things that go with it.
Welcome into the PFF NFL Podcast. Steve Palazzolo, Sam Monson. We're live here, Wednesday edition of the PFF NFL Podcast. It's going to be a fun show here today, Sam.
Excellent. Those are always good.
Yeah. We're talking some PFF Awards, which you're an official voter now. You and a lot of other people.
Of the AP.
Of the AP.
Yeah, these are not those, though. These are PFF's awards.
But we get the PFF Awards, but you got to, you get your say in the awards. So we're going to go through the PFF Awards, and then remember our preseason bets. We're going to go through a bunch of our preseason bets with you, the fans.
Yep.
Can't believe the season's already over.
Right. It's kind of roundup season for everybody. The NFLPA put out their All-Pro team. Did you see that?
You told me about it. I didn't see
bad.
it specifically.
I thought it would be. Thought it would be worse.
We've seen them do the NFL 100.
That's what made me think it would be quite a lot worse.
Maybe they're good at just figuring out the top 20, but beyond that, it's
the methodology is a bit different, which I thought was interesting. J.C. Treader, who's the president, right, of the NFLPA, tweeted what the kind of methodology thing would be before it came out. Only active players can vote, and they only get one vote. If a player missed 5 or more games as of Week 15, they're ineligible. Now, the flaw in this was created immediately because Aaron Donald made the team who had only missed, I think, 4 games as of Week 15. There's 2 problems there. One, evidently they vote in Week 15, so the final 2 weeks of the season don't count, which is 3 weeks, right? It's 18 weeks now. 17 games.
18, yeah.
So 3 weeks of the season don't count. That's quite a lot of the season not to be factoring in to your votes. But anyway, and number 2, Aaron Donald missed everything since Week 11 and still made their team.
Yeah.
Anyway. Players cannot vote for themselves or for their own teammates. Players vote for the position group they play in and line up against. So, for example, centers can vote for the best center in the league, the best nose tackle in the league, the best interior defensive lineman in the league, and the best off-the-ball linebacker in the league. So, in theory, it's supposed to design players to only be able to vote for players that they actually do watch on tape.
That part makes sense to me.
Yeah, because like a tackle is not watching any tape of a cornerback. He has no idea, 0 clue who the best cornerbacks are in the NFL. And then the special teams thing was done by various leaders from each team nominating essentially 2 special teams players for that team.
Because nobody watches special teams.
Right.
Nobody has any idea.
Their team actually ended up being okay. Like I say, there were some flaws, there were some problems, but overall, a lot better than the NFL 100 system.
So that's great. That's really good. We're going to go through our awards as well. As we said.
PFF's All-Pro team is obviously out as well. Everybody
right on the PFF app. Go read it on
Everybody hates
it. Oh, what's everybody mad about? What are they most mad about right now?
The most angry people are about the fact that Nick Bosa is not first team All-Pro.
Oh, you didn't give it to Nick, huh?
So there's 3 edge rushers that are very difficult to separate.
Aren't we going to talk about this later? Don't we have other stuff to talk about first?
We'll talk about it as well when we get to awards, but we might as well quickly hammer it now. Like, there are 3 edge rushers that all had amazing seasons. Nick Bosa, Micah Parsons, Myles Garrett. 2 of them play on good teams. 1 of them plays on a bad team. But it's almost impossible to separate those guys. So one of them is going to miss out. It would be easy to have Myles Garrett miss out because he plays on a bad team and nobody will care. But I don't think that's right. And by the way, neither do the players. The players had Myles Garrett on their first team All-Pro. They had Garrett and Bosa. We had Garrett and Parsons. But the point being, there's 3 into 2, so somebody's going to miss out. And for us, it was Nick Bosa.
Wow. That's what people are most mad about?
Yeah.
Well, that's good. It's all your fault. I mean, I'm skewed by the fact that Bosa had all those sacks and, was on a good defense. Default to that.
I got DM'd by another official voter who made that was his case. He was like, Nick Bosa drove Colton Miller back into the quarterback's lap in overtime and won them the game. Like, sure.
I made that point at the time, actually.
Yeah, and it's a fine point. Like, he had a great season. Like, this is why he is one of the 3 candidates for All-Pro. But there are signature moments from other people as well. Like, Micah Parsons, for example, handed Andrew Thomas the first sack he gave up this year. The next week, he handed Christian Darrisaw the first 2 sacks he gave up in the year.
That was weeks ago, though.
Yes, it was weeks ago.
That's the biggest problem with the voting. It's like, man, people don't have good enough memories to remember September and October. That was all part of the season, though. It was part of the season. All right. You wanted to – the Pro Bowl skills are also out. Do you want to start with that, or is that like a fun finish to the show?
Let's start with it because it's kind of funny.
Okay.
So remember, the Pro Bowl, it's gone away in favor of a flag football game. Is that what's happening? But they also have the skills competition. And the skills competition for the NFL, the best of the best in the NFL, is effectively – televised recess. So let me read you what's happening during this game. Thursday, there's going to be epic is in the name, epic Pro Bowl dodgeball. Speaks for itself, I think. There is dodgeball? The lightning round. New this year, each conference would select 16 players to compete in a 3-part elimination challenge that will leave 1 player at the end to earn 3 points for his conference. In the first event, lightning round splash catch, teammate pairings from each conference will toss water balloons back and forth from increasing distances.
Of course this is new for this year. They've never done everything's new for this year.
Each tandem that completes all of their tosses advances to the second phase. In part 2, lightning round high stakes. Advancing players will attempt to catch punts from a jugs machine to earn a place representing their conference in the final round of competition. In the final part of each conference will aim at targets attached to a bucket hanging above the head of an opposing conference's coach. The first team to dump the bucket on the opposing coach wins and earns 3 points. Okay. Then there's the longest drive, which is golf. 4 players from each conference will try and drive a golf ball the furthest. Then
better than recess.
Precision passing, presented by EA Sports Madden NFL 23 Mobile. Each of the conferences 3 quarterback, blah, blah.
Wait, Madden's mobile?
Apparently.
Now I know.
Best catch, presented by Uber Eats. It's just 2 guys trying to make a spectacular catch. Sunday, there's also best catch, apparently.
They're keeping them there for 4 days?
Yeah.
To do all this?
Then there's Gridiron Gauntlet, a side-by-side relay race showcasing strength, speed, and agility. Kick-tack-toe, each team's kicker, punter, and long snapper compete in a giant tic-tac-toe competition to showcase their respective skills. And then finally, move the chains. 4 teams will compete side-by-side in a weighted wall pull that will showcase their strength, speed, and ingenuity. Each team of 5 players is responsible for pulling a wall loaded up with heavy weights 10 yards as quickly as possible using first down chains.
I have many questions here.
So that's the Pro Bowl now.
Who do you think at the league office is responsible for this?
I kind of hope Raj just went to like a playground somewhere and was like, all of those games, write them down.
Let's do that.
That's what we're doing.
Like, who really just, hey, for the next 6 months, your job, or maybe a day, your job is to come up with something to fill Pro Bowl.
I mean, if that took longer than 5 minutes,
here are your constraints. Time. It can't be a football game. Go. That's it. Your constraint is it can't be a football game.
Yeah.
Anything else is in play, including dodgeball and
epic dodgeball,
and oh, by the way, go grab some sponsors for it. Make sure there's a couple sponsors for each game.
If you can make the name a pun that ties directly to a corporate sponsor, that would be ideal.
The funniest thing about all this, this is a 4-day event now. Is it 4 days?
I mean, there's Thursday and there's Sunday. That's
are they just filming it one day? I mean, here's what's the biggest show on TV these days? Cable. I mean, what gets the best ratings every week?
The NFL always.
I mean, like a drama, like a
Yellowstone, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, whatever this is going to crush all of it. It's still going to be a ratings bonanza.
Of course.
For the Pro Bowl weekend.
Yes.
If one guy gets hurt,
playing epic dodgeball,
it's over. It's over. Why didn't they bring the old QB skills competition? That's what everybody's begging
Well,
for.
that's the accuracy thing. There's some version of that is there.
I just want to see a QB long throw.
Dude, that's the one thing they haven't added to this.
Yeah.
Why do we not? They've got a longest drive competition to see who can drive a golf ball.
I just want to see who could throw the ball the furthest.
Right. Line up Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen next to each other and see who can hit 95 yards.
Then you root for Joe Burrow and the Bengals to make the Super Bowl just so Allen and Mahomes can go to the Pro Bowl.
I want noodle-armed quarterbacks in the Super Bowl only, so that the Pro Bowlers are Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes trying to throw the ball a mile from where they.
But the QB competition should be. I think every quarterback should be invited to that for the long throw. Like I want Taylor Heineke there side by side with Josh Allen. It's
like when they used to do the NFL's fastest man thing. You know, it was like a sprint. And it was never. You know, there were a lot of times where the NFL's fastest man clearly wasn't there. It's like, I mean, this is nice and all, but you're not faster than Tyreek Hill, you know?
See, I think for those things, everybody needs to play. You got to get everybody in there.
Yeah.
Get some line. Do fastest lineman. Do fastest everything. Tight end. Anyway, that's
so that's the Pro Bowl.
That's interesting. Those guys had to earn it, man. That's what's funny. Like they earned a spot on the Pro Bowl team.
They earned a spot at recess
to go do this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where is it? Send it back to Hawaii?
I don't know.
Is it in Arizona?
I don't know where it is.
Should we get? They go to the Super Bowl.
Isn't it always in Vegas now?
Oh, maybe.
Isn't that where
Probably.
they put it?
So yeah, that sounds like fun. All right, you want to get into? Do you want to do bets or awards first? You want to go through our bets?
Yeah, well, let's quickly get those out of the way. It is Allegiant Stadium, which is Vegas, right?
That's a good question. All right, before we get into, what are we doing? Bets?
Yeah.
The PFF NFL Podcast is sponsored by Western and Southern Financial Group. While you focus on your roster moves, Western and Southern helps advance your money moves. Buying your first home? Planning to start a family? Wondering how to make your money grow? Well, Western and Southern's playbook of life insurance, investment, and retirement solutions helps you rest assured on game day. Team up to understand needs and address goals with a game plan built just for you. Get started at westernsouthern.com/PFF. So you see it right there up on the screen, westernsouthern.com/PFF. Go check it out right now. Thanks to our friends over at Western and Southern. All right, so we made, just to catch everybody up, we made some bets at the beginning of the season. The genesis of this was a confident Raiders fan who said, you guys, you jerks, you guys ranked the Raiders with the number 21 roster this offseason. I believe they're better. Put your money where your mouth is. You guys should take bets on things that we believe as listeners, viewers, and things that you guys always say. So we said, hey, that's a great idea, and let's do that. I forget who the Raiders fan was, but I think we nailed that one too, by the way. They finished 6-11. So we took the goal here was Steve and Sam said something, right? You hate my team, you hate my quarterback, you believe this guy's good, and I don't think he is. Something that we said that we truly believe in, and essentially our listeners challenged us to a bet. You said this, but I believe the opposite. And let's put something on the line. And we had a whole show where we accepted or declined bets. We took a lot of criticism for declining a lot of bets, but again, the point had to be something that we strongly believed in. Yeah. And here we are to either pay out or get paid.
Or get paid. There's not an awful lot of us getting paid involved in this. I don't think that was
we're not really getting paid,
the drive.
But you know,
the final tally is 24 wins, 4 losses, and 1 that we voided because it involved Drew Lock. So didn't happen, which isn't a bad start. Like a lot of them earlier in the year, it looked like we were going to lose a lot of these, and then some of them swung back in our favor over the course of the season.
Positive regression.
Yeah, so let's sort of run through some of the ones that we won. Daniel Jones will be a top 12 quarterback in passing grade. Nope. The WAR one that the Patriots' top 3 picks would have more WAR than the Ravens' top 3 picks. That was looking dodgy for a while. Swung back in our favor. The Bills' offensive line will be top 5 in PFF grade. They've been heading in the wrong direction there. I think bottom 5 right now. First one we lost. Seahawks will win 8 or more games.
From Thomas Stewart. There was a few. I mean, the ones that we lost, very much Seahawks related.
If people whose names we can read out, or if you recognize this as your bet, would email us back, that would be helpful. Otherwise, I got to go trawling through emails to find it again.
So Thomas Stewart, you're a winner. I think we probably promised PFF Plus
Yes.
to all of our winners.
Right, a
So
year.
Thomas Stewart's going to get a year of PFF Plus because he bet us that the Seahawks would win 8+ games.
Yeah, good for him. A couple of these were Seahawks related. Brian Kuhn, that Zach Wilson would break into the top 15. Ooh, dear. Elliott had an interesting one, and this is another one we lost, that the Raiders, Dolphins, and Eagles, essentially the teams that traded for number one wide receivers in the offseason, will have a higher EPA per play than the Titans, Packers, and Chiefs, the teams that traded them away. Now, the Chiefs obviously did great by us. The Titans screwed us. The Titans and their injuries and their garbage offensive line and the whole thing falling apart, they effectively single-handedly canceled out the Chiefs' offense in EPA per play, leaving the Packers, who were like barely above average, to kind of carry the day. But the Dolphins had a good offense and the Eagles had a good offense, and even the Raiders wasn't great, but it wasn't bad enough to drag down that. So Tennessee, being awful, lost us that bet.
I'm surprised I accepted this on the Titans, Packers, Chiefs behalf. Because that would have been...
Well, if the Titans just didn't stink, we'd have won it easily.
I know, but I was the one that was like hammering the other teams were making the right moves at receiver. So I feel like I would have been on the other side of it. But yeah, we lose. I guess we lose that one.
Yeah, so Elliot, I don't have a second name, but if Elliot messages us back,
Elliot, you win.
he will get a free
This doc is live, right? For people to go
anyone
check
can see
out
it.
and everything.
I don't know if it's in the chat, but anyway,
Should tweet
we've
it out.
posted the link. We'll have it in the description of this. You can go see the document. Bradley Ackerley, Vikings will finish top 5 in PFF's offensive line rankings. I think there were 11, maybe 10. They got into the top 10. They didn't quite get to 5.
They were better, but that's an aggressive bet.
Yes.
There. Yeah.
Vishnu, the Patriots wide receiver core, will be better than the Bills wide receiver core. Nope. Zach Wilstrup, the Cowboys will finish last in the NFC East. Nope. Though, the rest of the NFC East was competitive. Ty Guy on Twitter, the Browns start the season 4-0, regardless of the Watson suspension. Didn't happen. Trevor Steunenberg, Seahawks starting quarterback, Geno Orlock, will be top 25% of qualifying quarterbacks in PFF grade. Geno got it there. Geno, even with the tail off towards the end,
QB9
was
overall.
top 10 in quarterback grades, which when you have the threshold low enough is top 25%. Obviously, if you had 32 quarterbacks.
So Trevor, another Seahawks. So 3 out of the 4 have Seahawks connections. Of our losses.
It's all.
So this is another loss
Essentially,
for us.
we got one thing really wrong, and we were called on it, on those one bets. So Toby, Chiefs offense and defense will finish top 5 in EPA per play. Nope, offense did, defense didn't. Jonathan said that Brandon Scherf will have a career year in PFF grade, plus a bunch of other ones for Jags.
Basically, every Jags signing will be really good, and that didn't.
If we do this next
happen.
year, one lesson from a bet standpoint is pin your mask to one thing. The composite bets are not going to go your way. Don't do it. Find one thing.
He had a Christian Kirk thing, Folo Faudakasi, finishing top 10 in run defense. He had a lot of things there.
One thing, no matter how crazy it is, and bet on that one. Or send us in multiple individual bets. Don't try and come up with a composite one. You will lose. Lee Miles, Falcons will finish with the same record or better as the Chargers. Got closer, but not quite.
They were one game apart when they played each other.
Yeah.
And it was
Zach Guest, the Bucks will sweep the Saints in 2022, and Brady will have an 80-plus PFF grade in both. Didn't happen. Another Zach Wilson one from Austin Callahan. Jordan Webster says the Bears will have a top 20 offense this season. That got pretty close.
That looked good
by
for a
the
while,
end.
too.
They were 22nd, something like that, but it got closer than it was looking for a while. Steven Robinson, the next one we lost. Daniel Jones will finish within 3 points of Russell Wilson in PFF grade. Now, actually, if you want to be technically harsh about it, he didn't finish within 3 points of him.
No,
right?
he was way better.
He was way better.
Way better.
So if you wanted to be really pedantic, you could say, actually, we won that one on a technicality. The best way of winning. But we're not doing
Robinson
that.
gets
Right.
PFF Plus.
We are giving him his PFF Plus because the spirit of that bet is clearly that Russell Wilson would be better than Daniel Jones, and Daniel Jones would get close. But in fact, Jones was way better than Wilson this year. Nick said Trey Hendrickson will finish with 19-plus sacks. Nope. Christopher said Steelers will finish top 12 in offensive DVOA. We pivoted all these to EPA per play or something, right? Anyway, didn't happen, and made the playoffs. Didn't happen. Again, composite bet, not going to be your friend. Justin in Portland, Dak Prescott finishes with an 82 PFF grade. Nope. Steven, all 4 AFC West teams make the playoffs. Almost happened, but with a different division. Chad, Jaquan Briscoe will be the highest graded defensive rookie. That's one for you. Didn't happen. Kay says Panthers will win the NFC South. Almost happened. Didn't quite happen.
They were close.
Lucas was the one with the Drew Lock bet that got voided. Dino, Week 18 game between the Giants and the Eagles will be for the division title, and the Giants will win. That one got reasonably close for a while, and then Eagles pulled away. Giants collapsed. Rory Daniel. This is the guy. So technically, we won this bet. This was the Detroit Lions will make the playoffs, and he emailed this.
Was a midseason bet.
Yes, he emailed this when they were nowhere. They had like a 1% chance of making it at this point. He was sketching out this scenario where everything came together. Aiden Hutchinson stepped up. Some random showed up and improved the defense, and like James Houston. Everything came together, and they ran the table, and they made the playoffs. I think because it basically happened, except for one crazy-ass game where they gave up 320 yards to the Panthers on the ground and just forgot how to defend the run. I say we give this guy the free subscription.
I completely agree.
He's going to pay in $50 to the charity drive we're doing right now.
What were the Lions, 1-7 or something?
Something like that.
When he called this in?
He's going to pay $50 to the charity drive right now, so I figure it's a fair trade.
Rory Daniel's getting PFF Plus for the year.
Colin Brinster said that Coach Saturday,
obviously a midseason bet that we took,
will have a better win percentage this year than Nathaniel Hackett. Now, I think he said this after game one, right? Like after they'd beaten the Raiders. And
maybe. I mean, it looked good after week one.
Things were high on Coach Saturday, and then,
And it actually didn't happen.
No, despite the fact that Hackett got canned and was finished with a crappy record.
Hackett was sitting on his poor record.
Yes, he declared and was out for whatever it was.
I think Saturday just needed 1 or 2 more wins, right?
Yeah, and then Coach Saturday just kept losing. And then Vortex from YouTube, whoever that is, Derek Carr and Tua grades combined will be higher than Mahomes and Rodgers' PFF grade combined. No. So that's our tally. 24 wins, 4 losses, and 1 no contest.
So look, I did win something this year. Won a few bets.
Yeah, you did.
A few people offered up coffee and various things that they've emailed about. We appreciate that. I don't need to accept any gifts, but happy to pay out the PFF Pluses, though. Those are good.
Absolutely. So we will be in contact with those people, either me trolling emails or hopefully they message us and say, that's me. That will make my life easier. But yeah, we will do that. That was fun. I think we'll do it again next season.
Yeah,
or maybe to draft. Maybe we can do some draft ones.
You want to do some draft ones?
Yeah.
Huh? Draft takes. So draft, absolutely, it needs to happen.
Yeah,
because every time you put out the mock draft, it's like this will never happen.
Yeah.
But those are tough to be right or wrong because neither of us can. Neither side can properly predict things.
No, but that's
other than this guy will be above and below.
It's a lot riskier, but
yeah,
I mean that's why it's there.
So yeah, that's fun. That was fun. We'll absolutely do it next year as well. Appreciate everybody being a part of the bets.
Yeah, I don't think we have any crazy locked in stone playoff takes, but if somebody wants to throw a bet on the playoffs or something we've done, NFL Podcast at PFF.com, or get your draft ones in early as well. Like those, send us the bets to NFL Podcast at PFF.com. If there's anything good, like this is all based, again, the premise of this is when we say something and we're pretty confident about it, if you think we're full of it, send in the bet.
Yeah, for instance, I'm going out on a massive limb here, right? That I think that the Chiefs, Bills, or Bengals are going to win the AFC. If you're a Jags or a Chargers fan or a Skylar Thompson Dolphins fan and you're like, nope, my team's doing it. My team's going to the Super Bowl with the AFC.
I do think, for example, there's never a 0% chance. There is a 1% chance that Skylar Thompson leads the Miami Dolphins to a Super Bowl championship this year.
But if somebody wants to...
You think we're crazy?
Throw your name on the
Fire
line.
it in.
Yeah.
I will happily put a PFF Plus on that.
Look at you, Dolphins hater. A hater.
I mean,
All right, before we get into the awards, the NFL playoff picture is locked in. And my go-to place for wildcard round action is DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. To kick off the road to Super Bowl 57, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in free bets instantly. Plus, all new and existing customers can get a no-sweat bet each day of wildcard round this weekend. Just place any NFL bet of your choice, and if it loses, you'll get a free bet backed up to $10. Action so good, why bet on NFL playoffs anywhere else? Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code PFF. New customers can bet $5 on the NFL and get $200 in free bets instantly. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook with the code PFF. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. All right, Sam, PFF Awards time. You wrote these up. They're over at the PFF app, which everybody should download and check out. Also at pff.com. I'm going to start top to bottom here.
Sure.
The most valuable player in the NFL.
Yes, with the obvious caveat that I hate this award and everything it stands for, and always will. Always have, always will. For anyone that's new, doesn't know why, I think in the NFL we get caught up, tied up in knots in the value part of that description. I think in every other sport, MVP is supposed to be just the best player from the league that year. That's what it's there for. It's most outstanding player. It's the Heisman. But for some reason, the NFL, we're like, oh, well, who's the most valuable? What if he wasn't in the lineup? How much value are his teammates bringing to the table? What if he didn't play all year and Curtis Painter had to go out and play 16 games? Does that make him the... Anyway, we get caught up in this ridiculous merry-go-round every year, so I hate it. That's why PFF has the Dwight Stephenson Award, which is just the best player in the year, in the league that year. That being said, Patrick Mahomes is the MVP this year.
Because if you took Patrick Mahomes out of the lineup, the Chiefs might not be that good. Yeah, I think it's pretty clear. Well. It's Patrick Mahomes. I completely agree.
I think when you look at the narrative this year, it was Mahomes versus Allen for, 6 weeks, right? And then it became Tua when he was playing absurd numbers from Tua. It's like Mahomes versus Tua. And then it was Jalen Hurts versus Patrick Mahomes. And, are we going to learn about Jalen Hurts' MVP candidacy? And then right up on the rails at the end, it's maybe Joe Burrow could get into the conversation. And then even right at the end, before the Green Bay game, people are like, if Justin Jefferson breaks 2,000 yards, doesn't he have an MVP case? But the whole thing has been it's been Mahomes the whole way, and then we just keep finding other horses for him to run against. But it's, if the one guy has been constant from pillar to post, it's probably him.
The Jalen Hurts argument was also the fun one. That was the whole addition by subtraction discussion, right? It's if we're going to learn about Jalen Hurts' value when he's not in the lineup. And I don't know if any voters are actually going to use this logic, the fact that they were 0-2 without him, but 14-1 with him. But people do use the value argument like that. Well, we saw the Eagles without Jalen Hurts. They lost 2 games. But with him, they were 14-1. Somebody's going to vote him for first just because of that. But I look at the value component as not – to me, it's strictly what value did you directly add to your team. And Jalen Hurts added 0 value to his team in the 2 weeks that he was hurt. So Mahomes, from start to finish, added the most value to his team. And then if you do want to play that game, right, what do we know with and without and all that stuff? In a year where we saw Tyreek Hill and how good he is go to the Dolphins and help transform that offense, and the fact that the Chiefs didn't miss a beat and they actually got better this year than they did last year, Mahomes is the driver for that, right? The fact that he took a step forward in his career. I think we all agree Mahomes has been great since he's come into the league, right? But to sustain success like the Bradys and Mannings and Montanas of the world, think about what those guys did. They had slightly different types of systems, right? They had different players around them, and they always essentially produced and played at a high level. And Mahomes showed that he could do that this year. We had never seen him without Tyreek Hill plus Travis Kelce, 2 Hall of Fame caliber players. We had never seen him for an extended period of time without those guys. And he goes and puts up a 91-plus grade, top passing grade in the NFL. And I think it's pretty clear it's Mahomes as the MVP.
Yeah, I do think there's absolutely a significant data point that says 2 of those other guys had a significant receiver added to their offense, and one of them had it taken away. And that's relevant. I think that's a significant part of the value thing. But I just generally think that we get caught up way too much in the value thing here instead of just trying to do what most MVP awards are there for, which is award the best player in the league.
All right, well then let's get to the award that you love, the Dwight Stephenson Award. I'll let you give a little bit of the history of where the name comes from, but we started this years ago and said, okay, we are going to throw value out. We're going to isolate the best player. Last year's winner was Trent Williams. He's an offensive lineman. Aaron Donald has won the Stephenson. Tom Brady has won the Stephenson. So it's regardless of position, who's the best player in the league. It's not purely based off just overall grade, but there's a little bit of context that we need to add to this. But let's talk Stephenson and who was Dwight Stephenson.
Dwight Stephenson was a center for the Miami Dolphins who was widely regarded as one of the best players to ever play in the NFL. Like, that guy was an absolute force, just year after year, widely renowned as being one of the best players ever. Pro Football Reference has a bunch of sort of unique historical data points that all point to him being just night and day better than anybody else in the NFL at that time at the position, and relative to other guys. Like, he was the gold standard for just elite play during his time. Only played for like 9 or 10 years, I think. They had a relatively short career, but Hall of Famer, just genuine, phenomenal player.
All right, so who's in the mix here for the Dwight Stephenson Award this year?
I think there's a lot of players in the mix. Obviously, Mahomes is in there. I think Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson, any of the Defensive Player of the Year candidates, whether it's the 3 edge rushers, Chris Jones, Dexter Lawrence, like a lot of really good players this season.
We didn't have, last year, Trent Williams broke our offensive line scale, and it was a pretty clear cut. He was the winner. This year, there's a lot of players in that 92, 93 overall range across various positions. There needs to be like a little bit of mental positional adjustment, right, for some of them, because for instance, interior defensive line, there's 4 guys at 90 plus this year. At quarterback, it wasn't a great year for quarterbacks. I think that matters too, like the trends in the league, as far as it was tough to play offense this year across the NFL, and the fact that the Chiefs maintained their excellence in a year where the offense was down across the NFL, I think means something in this whole equation.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, people keep, for Rookie of the Year and things, people compare it to like, well, this guy had more numbers than some other Rookie of the Year from 5 years ago. It's like, well, I don't think you can really do that. Like, it has to be relative to what's happening right now, and how everybody else in the NFL is doing, particularly at your position, is relevant to the award you're being put up against.
Well, for instance, I think Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady both were battling for the MVP last year. I think if they both had the same seasons, they both win the MVP this year. But if they did, over Mahomes perhaps. But Stephenson Award, though, who's it going to?
Well, usually the Stephenson is where you get to go, all right, MVP, and to an extent Offensive Player of the Year has become a quarterback award. But Stephenson is our chance to say all positions are created equal. So let's give it out to Trent Williams, an offensive tackle, or let's give it to, a wide receiver, or let's give it to Aaron Donald, or whoever. Like, it's pick a position where the best player is actually a random position that doesn't have bring the most value to the table. This year, though, I honestly think Patrick Mahomes has been as good as any player in the NFL, and therefore, I think for the first time, the Stephenson is also going to the MVP. They're one and the same. Patrick Mahomes is winning this award too.
Brady would have had it maybe one year.
I can tell you, actually.
2017?
I have the document. Yes, Brady in 2016.
16, he won the Stephenson.
Had the Stephenson.
Maybe we didn't give it to him in 17.
Having said that, we didn't. That was one of the 3 years where we stopped giving the MVP award on the grounds that it's dumb. So technically, this is the first time that a quarterback has won both the MVP
you have our awards history.
And the Stephenson in the same year.
There was a part of PFF history where we said, no.
It's happened twice, 2 different times.
We're not doing this.
I have successfully campaigned to have us remove the MVP award twice in our history, and both times it's been brought back over my protestations.
I think that's fair. Again, everything I described about like the just the situation, right? I mean, nobody would look at Kansas City's playmakers outside of Travis Kelce and just be like, oh yeah, of course they're loaded. I think it was a fair argument though to say Mahomes with Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce is gonna help your production and in the play calling and everything that they have there. But this year was different. I think it was more Mahomes driven. And to your point, there wasn't a single dominant player at another position that said, this guy has to be the Stephenson Award winner. Mm-hmm. So I think Mahomes makes sense there. I like your runner-ups, though. Runners-up.
It's like everybody.
Tyreek Hill and Chris Jones right there.
Yeah.
All former teammates. All former Chiefs, 2 current Chiefs. But Tyreek Hill was very much in the mix. How much would Justin Jefferson be the Stephenson Award winner if Week 17 didn't happen where he only caught 1 pass?
Yeah, I mean, if Week 17 was the same as the rest of the season, where you average like 100 or whatever, then sure. Like this year felt to me, doing the awards, there were a lot of I don't want to use the word coin flips because it suggests that I'm just out here, blindly determining the winner. But there were so many awards that felt really razor thin margins and very difficult to separate. Anything Tyreek Hill and Justin Jefferson, just as a duo. So that's going to come into Offensive Player of the Year, the best receiver, whatever. Splitting those two guys, I thought was incredibly hard because Tyreek Hill had a bit of a downturn when obviously Tua went down and they were left with Teddy and then Skylar Thompson throwing him the ball. And Justin Jefferson's season kind of ran into a brick wall in that Week 17 game where they played Green Bay and he fell over and then got shut down by Jair. Both these guys at various points in the season were threatening to break Calvin Johnson's record and be the first receiver to cross 2,000 yards in a year and blah, blah, blah. And each one of them ran aground for whatever reason, but they were still the best two receivers in the NFL.
Which brings us to Offensive Player of the Year. And we're going Tyreek Hill of the Dolphins. Tyreek Hill just over Justin Jefferson and Josh Jacobs of the Raiders. Josh Jacobs being the best running back in the NFL, most valuable running back in the NFL this year. But why Tyreek Hill over Justin Jefferson? We talked about it a little bit, the fact that Jefferson, not because it was one bad game, but I think for me the argument for Tyreek Hill is the quarterback situation, right? We saw how explosive he was with Tua in the lineup, but he had multiple games of Skylar Thompson and Teddy Bridgewater. Bridgewater wasn't as good in this system as Tua was. That was a huge factor. The number that really stands out to me, though, yards per route run. Not only does Tyreek Hill have the highest receiving grade, PFF grade, 92.2, 3.2 yards per route run is a ridiculous number.
Yeah.
Justin Jefferson was at 2.6 for perspective. And that 3.2 number, that's up in this reminds me of like Julio Jones, right? This was his stat for years, right? The most productive per route runner, producer in the NFL, basically. And he would be competing with, say, a guy like Antonio Brown, who would have higher volume, much like Justin Jefferson this year, higher volume, more 10-catch games and all that stuff. But on a per-snap basis, Julio Jones was always the most productive from like 2011 through 19 or whatever it was. And that was Tyreek Hill for this season.
Yeah, and even with, the games with Skylar and Teddy Bridgewater, et cetera, Hill still finished with more explosive plays than Jefferson, one more. Those two were both like 5 clear of anybody else. Like, even with that kind of downturn in quarterback situation, he still had the best sort of stats outside of pure cumulative yardage, where Jefferson ends up winning.
All right. Do you even want to talk about Defensive Player of the Year?
Yeah.
You're going to be people are going to be mad,
It's
man.
already out there. They already know.
They're going to be mad.
I mean, if Bosa didn't make first-team All-Pro, he's not getting Defensive Player of the Year.
Defensive Player of the Year. It's going to be hotly contested. What's your prediction for the real Defensive Player of the Year?
I think Bosa will win it.
You think Bosa will win it?
Yeah.
Do you think it'll be close? I don't think Myles Garrett's going to get votes.
No.
Votes
he'll get votes, but so it's done.
He won't
now.
be getting first-place votes, though.
He might get a couple. I mean, if the fact that the players put him on the first-team All-Pro, I think is encouraging in terms of where people see him relative to
I think players are way less skewed by record, though, right? Because especially the way you describe the voting, like it's left tackles are going to vote for, like they know Myles Garrett.
That's the way it should be, right? The fact that you get guys that can have amazing seasons, like Aaron Donald has won 3 Defensive Player of the Year awards, right? And they're basically the 3 years where the Rams and their defense was good, which means Aaron Donald, who essentially has been the same guy for 7, 8 straight years, people have determined whether or not he was having a good or a bad year based off non-Aaron Donald factors, right? When the non-Aaron Donald factors have been good, Aaron Donald's having a Defensive Player of the Year caliber season. And when they haven't been, it's like, it's a down year for Aaron Donald. When he's basically been the same guy every year. He should be working on a 6 or 7 straight run of Defensive Player of the Year awards heading into this season, but he isn't because of other things. I just think that's bad process. Like, if you're trying to say who was the best player this year, then say that, and team record shouldn't come into it.
So, Defensive Player of the Year. You think Nick Bosa? I agree. Nick Bosa is going to win the real award. We talked about Myles Garrett and Micah Parsons as this, the trio at the top of all the edge defenders. But the Defensive Player of the Year for us this year?
We went with Chris Jones.
Can you say it more confidently, please?
We went with Chris Jones.
Chris Jones of the Chiefs. I mean, I think looking at guys like relative to their position is important too, right? Chris Jones was 5th in the league in total pressures because he's an interior defensive lineman, right? Edge rushers, just by the nature of the position, are going to get more pressures. But he had 14 more pressures than any other interior player. Dexter Lawrence was 2nd with 63. This is how we used to always justify Aaron Donald, right? He's pressuring players at an edge defender level despite being on the interior.
I think, by the way, as an aside, you can construct a Defensive Player of the Year case for Dexter Lawrence as well. Like,
absolutely.
Just as a side note on this whole thing.
Because Dexter Lawrence also had he had the highest run defense grade among all interior defensive linemen, plus being second in pressures. Massive breakout season for Dexter Lawrence. And when we're doing this, because we do care about run defense, because we have looked at every single snap, there is a case there for Dexter Lawrence being up there with Chris Jones. But he was slightly behind Jones in overall grade here for us.
Yeah. I think Jones was phenomenal this year. Like, even if Aaron Donald had played all season long, Chris Jones might have been the best interior pass rusher in the NFL all season long. That's the kind of level he was playing at. The fact that he can also kick out to beat tackles around the edge as a speed rusher at 315 pounds or whatever he is now is insane. Like, there's a reason that Kansas City decided that he could move and be a full-time edge rusher. It wasn't crazy. Chris Jones is Kansas City's best edge rusher right now, and has been for a couple of years. It's just that moving him there and having him be a full-time edge rusher is a net negative, as opposed to keeping him inside where he's the best pass rusher or best interior pass rusher in the NFL, and then just figure out the edge. Like, it's a net loss, even though he's still their best guy.
You're still probably, even though it's quote-unquote easier to get pressure off the edge, I still don't think Chris Jones is a 77 pressure edge defender, right?
No, maybe not.
I don't think he's going to win at that. No, he'd be fine, but I don't think he's at that level. But if you can get 77 in a 90-plus pass rush grade on the interior, that is more valuable because it's more his skill set.
But my point being, the fact that a 315-pound dude can kick out to the edge, whoop a tackle around the corner,
it's incredible,
like he's a speed rusher, is madness, and it should enhance his Defensive Player of the Year case. Like, Aaron Donald went out and played some wide nine this year because he was trying to get away from triple teams, and Aaron Donald didn't have that same kind of impact. And Aaron Donald, if you were lining each one of them up and saying which guy has more speed and athleticism and burst and therefore might be a better edge rusher, you would say Aaron Donald. But Chris Jones is the one that can actually do that. Donald hasn't really been able to. So I think Jones has a phenomenal case for Defensive Player of the Year.
Let's discuss the statistical and grading case, though, for why Myles Garrett should be in the Micah Parsons, Nick Bosa discussion.
Just the three of them statistically are almost impossible to separate, right? They're all above 90 in PFF pass rushing grade. Nick Bosa has the lowest pass rushing grade of the trio, but he also has by far the highest run defense grade. So it sort of evens out there. Nick Bosa and Micah Parsons each have 90 total pressures. Myles Garrett is a little bit lower at 73, but Myles Garrett has the highest pass rush win rate of the three. So every time you find a stat that says one of them is like less than the other two, he counters it by being first in something else, right? And the other two are lower down. The only thing I really found that separated them in any way, shape, or form was Timo Riska's advanced stuff that he has, where he tweeted a chart, PFF Moo, if you're looking for him on Twitter, tweeted a chart that's essentially trying to quantify the performance of pass rushers generally relative to expectations, and then also on the other axis quantifying like how difficult was their role, like how difficult was the job, which factors in a whole bunch of stuff. So it factors in strength of competition. How good was the tackle this guy was being blocked by? Was it a tackle at all, or was it a running back or a tight end, which happens a lot? How much double team help did the guy get? Like, how all these sort of things, schematic help, whole raft of stuff. And when you do that, Micah Parsons and Myles Garrett remain in this absurd elite quadrant where they're way better than anybody else in the league, and they have some of the hardest roles in the NFL. In fact, I think Myles Garrett has the hardest job in the NFL as an edge rusher. And Nick Bosa is the third most productive guy relative to expectations, but he's in the middle of the pack in terms of difficulty of assignment, difficulty of role, which makes sense even if you just limit it to like looking at the players he faced this year. Like, he went up against some pretty rough tackles relative to these other guys. Like I said, when Micah Parsons went on a run where he handed Andrew Thomas his first sack of the year, and then the next week handed Christian Darrisaw his first 2 sacks of the year, those are 2 all-pro, certainly Pro Bowl caliber offensive tackles, and he was whooping these guys like it was nothing week after week. Myles Garrett had incredibly tough assignments, contrary to what Jadeveon Clowney is trying to argue to the media. So
Parsons also did dabble at linebacker a little bit, even though he mostly moved to edge.
Right.
There were a few games where it's like, no, you're playing off ball, or you're playing differently.
if you're splitting hairs, which is what this is, right? There are three, particularly when it comes to All-Pro, there are three elite players for two spots. Somebody has to miss out, and whoever it is going to feel wrong because all three of them deserve to be in that spot. But there aren't three spots. Same thing for Defensive Player of the Year. Like, if you're looking to separate any of these guys, that's the closest thing it is to the hair splitting you can do, which says Nick Bosa is not even a step, is like slightly behind the other two guys.
All right, let's go to the rookies now. We have an overall Rookie of the Year and offensive and defensive Rookie of the Year. So the overall Rookie of the Year, if you've heard us talk enough.
Well, let's do it the other way. That way it's actually...
We want to build it up?
Well, that way it's not irrelevant from the very outset.
Let's start with offensive Rookie of the Year.
There you go.
Offensive Rookie of the Year. Wow, this is interesting.
It's not Brock Purdy.
It's not Brock Purdy.
No.
You got into a little, it wasn't a spat, but you had some discussions on Twitter about people that voted for Brock Purdy.
Even if Brock Purdy was playing as well as the conventional stats say he's playing, which he isn't, but he's playing well. Even if that was true, the idea that a guy can win Rookie of the Year based off 5 or 6 games, I think is insulting to the guys that played well for 17 games, of which there are several.
He's not even eligible for the players. If the players were voting for Rookie of the Year, he's not even eligible
Correct,
for their vote.
for their vote, right. So that should tell you something. Like, I just think that's a joke. We don't have to give an award to every good story, you know? Like, it's laudable. It's like everybody that retires isn't the Hall of Famer. They can be congratulations on a great career. You were a fantastic player. We enjoyed watching you.
Matthew Stafford.
Bye. We won't see you in Canton. Like, unless you're there to visit. You and I can visit together. We can both go to Canton and look at the Hall of Fame players, but you weren't one of them. That's fine. We don't have to put him in the Hall of Fame just because he was a good player for a while. We don't have to give Brock Purdy Rookie of the Year.
You're saying Brock Purdy's not a Hall of Famer?
I'm saying Brock Purdy is not Rookie of the Year because what he's doing right now is impressive. The fact that he's a great story, Mr. Irrelevant, amazing performance, relative to expectations, and yes, there's no downturn from Jimmy Garoppolo and blah, blah, blah. All these things are true. It doesn't make him Rookie of the Year because he's only played in 6 games.
So who is the offensive Rookie of the Year, Sam?
I think Garrett Wilson is.
Jets wide receiver.
Yes.
I think he's the favorite.
I think you can construct a case for Kenneth Walker, for Tyler Algier, put himself in that conversation.
Absolutely.
Chris Olave. But I think Garrett Wilson was the best rookie this year. And, people say, well, look at the difference Brock Purdy has made to that offense. Like, look at the difference Garrett Wilson made to that Jets passing attack. Okay, it then got undone by the fact that his quarterback stank.
Brock Purdy hasn't made a difference to the Niners offense.
He scored a lot more points when he's been in there.
Yeah. They've had a pretty good little run.
Yeah.
It's just small sample. Anyway, good.
The difference that Garrett Wilson makes to that Jets offense is pretty special. And okay, it's been undone a lot of the times because his quarterback situation's been terrible. But he's got the most broken tackles amongst the wide receiver by like a factor of 2.5 or something. He's been amazing this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think Chris Olave should be right up there with him. Similar type of season in New Orleans. But the biggest case, I think, for Garrett Wilson was how bad his stats were with Zach Wilson at quarterback compared to Mike White and Joe Flacco. And it's not like Mike White and Joe Flacco are top 5 quarterbacks or anything like that, but Wilson still finishes with the most receptions, yards, everything among rookies, despite having games where Zach Wilson spent more time scrambling to the sideline and throwing the ball away than actually targeting him. So, yeah, I think Wilson was spectacular statistically, had the highest receiving grade among rookies, in addition to just looking like a star, too. Like, even some of his incompletions, like the one-handed catch out of bounds, he looks like a future star. I'll also say, remember on draft night, or on combine night last, we were at a little shindig on when the receivers were running.
Shindig.
Yeah, a little shindig. Huh. We were at the party.
You're really undoing the cool kid talk you had last show.
I'll call it a party. We were at a party, bunch of NFL execs and people there as the receivers were running at the combine last year. Remember, everybody was running 4.2 on the fast watch. Either way, it looked like a good receiver class, is my point.
It appears to be.
And 6 receivers went in the top 18, and we had 75-plus grades for 4 different receivers who were rookies: Garrett Wilson, Drake London, Chris Olave, Christian Watson, Jahan Dotson.
You did.
Close. Somebody did that.
Who was
recently.
it? Was it whoever was
Scott
commentating
Hansen?
on that? Yeah, Scott Hansen was calling him Jahan Dotson.
You just got in my head.
Which was confusing me because I'm like, is he right? I mean, what does he know that I don't?
It's Jahan. You have Traylon Burks. You have George Pickens. It was a very good rookie wide receiver class, but I think it was I think Garrett Wilson's the right play there.
Yeah. So there's your offensive rookie of the year.
Now, defensive rookie of the year. Not going far here. We know we've made, and we even had comments the other day. Aiden Hutchinson. He had more interceptions than Sauce Gardner.
He does.
But Sauce Gardner's the defensive rookie of the year.
Yes.
It's clear. And here's the simple argument. We can have a discussion about Sauce Gardner being one of the top 3 corners in the NFL right now after his rookie season. We can't have that discussion for Aiden Hutchinson right now after his first year. Could he get there? Maybe. Aiden Hutchinson ended up over 80 grade and very, very good season. Sauce could be the best corner in the NFL right now.
Yeah, my bigger point would be that he did it from day one. Like, actually, there's I forget what the week is. It might be 10 or 11.
Oh, you're doing this.
Where Aiden Hutchinson from that point on is number the 3 defensive player of the year candidates. I forget what the order is, but I think it's Micah Parsons, Myles Garrett, Aiden Hutchinson, Nick Bosa.
Yeah, in part because Justin Fields threw him a pick. I mean, that affects things.
Anyway, the point is, if he'd been that guy all the way through the year, now we'd have a conversation. But he wasn't. He was okay for the first half of the year and then really good in the second half of the year. Sauce Gardner was really good from week 1 and kept on going through week 18. He's been arguably the best cornerback in the NFL for the entirety of his rookie season, which is madness. So I think it's pretty clear that he should be rookie of the year. And Aiden Hutchinson, again, it's like, great story. You might become that guy, but he was better for the whole season. So give it to him.
I think Sauce showed. I mean, DJ Reed was very good on the other side too, but you saw the impact that having corners for the first time in years with the Jets did for their defense.
Lowest passer rating allowed this season, Sauce. Highest PFF coverage grade. Lowest completion rate allowed into his coverage, and most combined interceptions and pass breakups. So plays on the football, right? How many times are you actually getting your hands on the ball? Sure, he didn't pick them off as much as Aiden Hutchinson, but he also had a ton of pass breakups. Like, he was making plays on the ball. That's an all-pro resume at corner. You can't make the same argument for anybody else on the defensive side of the ball amongst rookies.
Yeah, and when we make these arguments, it's not to tear down the person who didn't win. It's to state the case of the winner and then explain the differences. So Tariq Woolen of the Seattle Seahawks, incredible draft pick, 5th rounder. He had an awesome season. Did he end up with 6 interceptions? Woolen was a guy, again, to repeat, one of the best combines of all time.
Yeah.
Right? You will not see the length in size and speed combination that Tariq Woolen showed. You won't see that often. And he looked like a project. But he, coming in until he took the field, and early this year didn't look like a project. Looks like a guy that they could absolutely build around. Still had some warts here and there as a player, but man, a big play type of player. But he didn't have the snap-to-snap production that Sauce Gardner had, because we don't look at production as interception totals. And again, just to put a bow on it, if you are making the argument that Aiden Hutchinson had X number of sacks and Y number of interceptions, we're certainly not looking at 12 plays or 13 plays to determine the best defensive rookie of the year. We're trying to take in all snaps, all plays, and Aiden Hutchinson had a very, very good rookie season, but not because he happened to have a certain number of sacks and a few interceptions, which are somewhat lucky, but also good plays when you're given the opportunity.
Yeah. Woolen also had 8 penalties, which is significantly more than Sauce. He also had, he gave up 5 touchdowns. Sauce gave up 1 touchdown, and it was a communications breakdown where I think if you listen to him, he'll still argue that it wasn't on him, even though I'm pretty sure it was. So, there are negatives attached to this as well.
So how about overall rookie of the year then? Where are we going?
I think it's Sauce. I think he's been the best rookie by a pretty big distance. Again, I think he's the only guy where you can look at it and say, not only is he the best rookie at his position, but he's the best player at that position this year, which is A, crazy in itself, but B, cornerback might be the hardest position in the NFL to come in and be good at right away. He stepped in, and it was the same guy he was in college, where he was embarrassing people playing for Cincinnati, going up against Alabama receivers. Like, he's outperforming expectations every step of the way.
Yeah, incredible season for Sauce Gardner, for Garrett Wilson, and then that's the Jets, man. The Jets, they also had Breece Hall as a big play running back as their 2nd rounder. Incredible draft by the Jets. I know they had 2 top 10 picks, but I thought they made the right moves, man. Right? There was a lot of talk that they were going to draft an edge defender at 4. There was even talk that they were going to go offensive tackle despite all their offensive line investment. I think they picked the right positions, first of all. and then the right players, right? Getting Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson. They made the right picks at 4 and 10 for sure, and they still got a Jermaine Johnson later in the first. And whatever you want to say about their running back pick in the second round, Breece Hall did look like a dynamic playmaker before he got hurt. So congrats to the Jets on that. So there's a couple more general awards to get. Are we going to go through all the other specific? We'll just fly through them, the other ones. Comeback Player of the Year.
Yep.
I care less about this award. This is like my MVP.
Okay.
Like, who cares who faced adversity?
Who cares
Who
faced
cares?
adversity?
I'm just kidding. I mean, they're always nice
You
stories.
should be all for this. It's a very American award. You know, it's
Yeah.
a touchy-feely. You guys do this kind of thing well, right? Like the second anything dramatic happens, let's get Hollywood on the phone and make it into a movie.
Like Stetson Bennett. Stetson Bennett's going to have
Kurt
some
Warner.
movies.
Like, who's going to
Kurt
play?
Warner.
Who's going to play Geno Smith, who's the comeback player of the year this year in the made for? What's the equivalent of made for VHS now? Like they don't even have that. Like
Made for streaming?
yeah, made for
some streaming
made
service?
for Hulu, made for like whatever whatever isn't Netflix.
No, made for the highest bidding streaming service, actually. That's how we do it.
Well, who's going to play Geno in that movie? Because Geno's comeback player of the year. I know technically, I'm not 100% sure what he came back from. You know, it's a little bit of a misnomer, but it feels like we reached the halfway point in the year, and it's like I'm not sure what the exact criteria for comeback player.
Every
is.
year, that's
but
the
can
debate.
we all just agree that Geno belongs in it?
He came back from never being.
Yeah, like
Never
he
was.
didn't come back.
He
From
came back as a
injury.
starter, but this time as a good one.
Sure, yeah. It just, I mean, I find it hard to articulate why he's a comeback player.
Did Alex Smith win it that year that he just played football?
Yes.
He did, right? Properly, 2020. That was right. He came back from like a life-threatening leg injury. It doesn't matter what the criteria is. Geno Smith makes sense, right?
Yes.
He wasn't hurt or anything, but he hadn't been a starter since 2014. He had 2 opportunities with the Jets, was a below-average starter. They moved on, toiled as a backup for multiple years, spot starts here and there, played a bunch of preseason games, but never looked as good as he did this year in any of those, especially in any of those games, and making big-time throws. And I love how he handled adversity, right? You're always looking for this guy that breaks out thinking, can he sustain it? And every time it looked like he couldn't sustain it, he did bounce back and make some big throws. I do think there has been a downturn in his play, certainly in the second half of the season.
Yeah.
But it's not because he's just like incapable, and it's like there's a lot of bad decisions in there. But like last Sunday, there's an absolute dime, big time throw for a touchdown. He keeps coming back, and Geno Smith just had an incredible season.
Yeah, he had 34 big time throws. Only Josh Allen had more this year. Like if you'd said that to anybody before the season, they would have thought you're nuts.
So you know what he had? As I looked at Geno Smith's stats and in the end of his season, do you know what he had this year?
No.
He had the Jameis Winston season that I always talk about. Geno Smith had the Jameis, where if part of the Jameis, allure was he's so aggressive that he's going to add value to the offense. The only question is how much negative value will he add, and if luck goes the right way in a given season, maybe it's okay. Geno Smith finishes with 29 turnover-worthy plays, but only 11 interceptions. So this is like the year that Jameis threw, when he throws 25, 30 interceptions. What if they just get dropped that one year, right? But you still have all the good. You still have all the touchdowns. I'm not taking anything away from Geno. He's still graded. He was a number 9 overall quarterback. He was very good. He also had some variance work his way, and overall the stats were fantastic. But he had that like high-end, very high variance, good season that Jameis Winston, I always wanted him to have.
Does that mean your confidence is going to happen for Jameis is renewed because you've just seen it?
No, I think Geno stole it.
Yeah,
it's
or
gone.
Geno stole his season.
Geno stole
now
it.
It's never happening.
Maybe they flipped roles.
Okay.
Anyway, that was it. Saquon Barkley was in your mix too, coming off injury.
Brian Robinson came back for getting shot in the preseason or whatever it was. Like that's pretty impressive.
Is he going to win the real one, Brian Robinson?
I don't know. I have no finger on the pulse for where the NFL is going to go with comeback player of the year.
They could vote for DeMar Hamlin, as an award potentially.
Yeah, I don't know. I have no feeling on how they're going to go with
comeback player of the year is always a little like when Alex Smith won it. Wasn't there another candidate who had obviously a good season?
Yeah.
That they just said forget about J.J.
Right.
Watt or whoever it was.
Like, it's always a little...
J.J. wins it like every other year.
It's always a little nebulous as a concept.
Yeah.
But
Geno Smith's a great
It felt like
pick
we
for
got 2/3 of the way through the year, and it was like, no, Geno qualifies, and he should get it.
All right, let's go through the other PFF-specific awards. We give best receiver and offensive lineman and the whole deal. So there'll be some redundancy here, but best receiver.
Yeah, we already covered this with the Offensive Player of the Year stuff. Separating Tyreek Hill and Justin Jefferson, I think, is a nightmare. Again, don't want to use the word coin flip, but you're really splitting hairs between the two of them, and we went Tyreek Hill.
Devontae Adams in the mix there. Best offensive lineman, something I do feel like we can do a little bit better than others with the extra attention that we give the line.
I think it was Lane Johnson. The last time Lane Johnson gave up a sack, Donald Trump was still president, and the UK had a queen, not a king.
Did you write that? Was that in your write-up?
Yeah.
That's good.
I'm curious to see if it makes it to the website. The man hasn't given up a sack in like 2 years. It's insane. He gave up 9 total pressures this year, of which none of them were sacks or hits on the quarterback. Like 9 hurries across 550 pass blocking snaps with one of the hardest jobs in the NFL. Like Timo's stuff where he quantifies role and help and all that kind of thing. He does the reverse, obviously, for offensive linemen. And Lane Johnson regularly has like the toughest assignment of any offensive lineman in the NFL, and yet is arguably the best pass blocker in football. And you saw the difference he made when he wasn't on that offensive line. Like as soon as Lane Johnson is gone, and now all you have is 4 good starters and a problem, the line almost fell apart. Like Lane Johnson was huge to that group.
Also a very good run blocker. It was a good year for some breakout offensive linemen too. Andrew Thomas of the Giants in the mix. Christian Darrisaw had a breakout season for the Vikings, got hurt a little bit in there. Was a good year. Penei Sewell has started to establish himself as one of the premier right tackles in the league. I think he'll be challenging Lane Johnson for that top spot at right tackle in the future, along with Tristan Wirfs. But that's a good.
Wirfs is right up
pick
there. The difference between the two of them, Tom Brady had the fastest average time to throw all season long, like absurdly quick. Jalen Hurts obviously does not. And the difference in the two is like Lane Johnson is pass blocking for like 0.3 of a second longer per snap on average, which doesn't seem like much when you say it, but is the difference between like the fastest average time to throw in the league and somewhere like rank in the middle of the pack further towards the bottom than the top.
Best pass rusher. So we've given out just from a pass rushing standpoint, doesn't matter which position. Going Chris Jones of the Chiefs to match some of the other awards there, but
see previous Defensive Player of the Year.
See the same discussion as far as Garrett, Parsons, Bosa, giving it to Chris Jones this year. How about best run defender? Another thing that we do
people
specifically.
Off. Yeah, this will anger people because again, this is one of those ones where it's regardless of position. So we think about run defense as being a defensive tackle and linebacker job, right? That's what they do. They stop the run. The guys in the middle, they eat up 2 gaps. They eat up 2 offensive linemen, 2 blockers. The linebackers make the tackles. Here endeth run defense. Maybe you could throw in a run stuffing strong safety and in the box type of guy as well. Fine. Everyone else, not really your thing. But I think Jalen Ramsey has been the best run defender in the NFL in that role that he has within that Rams defense. Like the difference between him and other corners when it comes to run defense has been absurd. His grade is off the charts. You were telling me you went through his tape and watched some of these plays. Like, what do you see?
I mean, when he moved to this role with the Rams, I said they're moving him to that Charles Woodson, late career Charles Woodson role.
Yeah.
Not because he's still playing corner, but he's playing in the slot. And what Charles Woodson did was bring linebacker-like run defense skills to the slot, basically, to a cornerback role. Like there was a play on Sunday, Kenneth Walker, where the whole goal of offense is to like isolate your running back on a corner. But you don't want to do that with Jalen Ramsey. He beats Kenneth Walker to the corner, essentially saved the Lions season for at least a few more minutes, keeping Kenneth Walker out of the end zone. And he'd been doing that all season, right? He doesn't miss a ton of tackles in the run game. He's forced 2 fumbles, and he just flies to the ball. And you throw in the screen game as well, which counts for coverage for us. But just the way Ramsey plays, he is a linebacker, safety-esque player with cornerback coverage skills. So this award is for run defense, but a 92 run defense grade where he is just in a role where he has to make plays. He's not just being hidden. He makes impact plays in the run game for the Rams.
Yep. So again, like it's not what you think of as his or as a cornerback's role and responsibility, but he's so much better at that than anybody else in the league right now that it's the reason that he's still in all-pro conversations, even though he's been like good, not great in coverage this year, because his run defense is just on another level.
Best pass coverage. When we did go through a rebrand a few years back where this was the Night Train Lane Award.
Yeah, we had names for them, and then it just became too complicated and potentially copyright infringing.
We've tried a lot of things, but just the best pass coverage, again, it's any position.
The reason we still have the Stephenson is that Dwight's on board.
Yeah, he's good.
He's all for it. We didn't want to have to go through the legal arms of whatever Night Train Lane's legacy is and Jerry Rice and all that kind of thing, so we're back to just best players. Best coverage, Sauce, again. I think there's a bunch of players that are in the discussion, but those data points I read out earlier, like best passer rating allowed, lowest passer rating allowed, lowest completion rate. When you look at single coverage, his passer rating allowed is lower than if the quarterback could just junk the ball every time instead. Like, his numbers are nuts.
Love that Patrick Surtain is on here in year 2, that Sauce is in here in year 1 as Surtain is an honorable mention. So I think we hit a bit of a lull with like who's the best corner in the NFL or who are the top 3 or 4 corners in the NFL. I think with these guys are joining Ramsey and Jair Alexander and some of the guys where we could say, hey, there's a distinct 5 or 6 that we're looking at, and I think Surtain and Sauce are both in that mix now.
Well, it'll be interesting to see if any of those guys can buck the trend of the last 5 years or so, where it's been like a different corner every year. Somebody like Stephon Gilmore jumps up and he's a dominant force, and then Jair is great, and then Ramsey or whoever it is, like every year it's been a different guy, and we're sort of putting that down to that's just the position these days. That's the nature of cornerback and coverage in today's NFL. It fluctuates, it's volatile, it's too dependent on everything else. Certainly with Sauce, it'll be interesting to see, like, is he just that good where he can be the guy for the next, like, can he be the next Richard Sherman for the next sort of 5 years and just lock down that position as the best corner in the league?
Let's go breakout player of the year. This is different from comeback player of the year, but a guy that, not came out of nowhere, but just had his first really good season. Who broke out this season?
Though it could easily have been Geno. I think
it was his first good season. Geno Smith qualified.
I think we just sort of made the determination that Geno is winning comeback player of the year, and let's give breakout to somebody else. It could be him. I think he would qualify for this. Andrew Thomas wins the award. Andrew Thomas he went from disastrous rookie year, when it was from a really good offensive tackle class, when a ton of these guys went in the first round. And after his rookie season, everyone was like, oh, wow, the Giants picked the wrong guy. They picked him first, and look at Tristan Wirfs and look at Mekhi Becton and all these other guys look better than him. This is a terrible pick. And you sort of saw it as his rookie year went on. Right at the end, he was starting to play a little bit better, having reworked his sets. Year 2, he was much better as a pass blocker, but still sort of just heading in the right direction. And then this year, he was as good as any left tackle in the NFL, and the rest of that offensive line was terrible. Like, he didn't have any help. It was just him locking down his side.
His overall grades went from 62 to 78 to this year 89, and one of the few players around the league to be above 80 as both a pass blocker and a run blocker, which is something he did. What's that?
One of 2.
One of only 2. There we
Trent
go.
Williams being the other one, so it's pretty good company to be keeping.
I remember writing up Thomas coming out of Georgia thinking he is the best combination of both pass block and run block. I might not be right. Wirfs might be the guy. but Thomas, of that group coming out, like Mekhi Becton looked like more of a run blocker, and, Thomas might have been the best all around. Now, looking back, along with Wirfs, but we finally got to see that all come together this year. I like the honorable mentions. Trevor Lawrence is another obvious one as a breakout. Ryan Neal, the safety from the Seahawks, 6'3", moves around, the way he covers tight ends and running backs. He's kind of a modern-day safety. See if he can keep it up. It's tough to sustain elite performance like he's had at safety, but
I think you could put a ton of players in this conversation. Darisaw, that we talked about before, would be in there as well. Who else was I just thinking about? Christian Lindstrom, I think, is another guy who took his game from good to great this season. A ton of guys that would fit into this.
You have a book deal? Good to great?
Good to great?
Yeah. Should get a book deal or something.
Yeah?
Just drop that in there. All right.
What?
It's a book.
Whose book?
I don't know. It's about businesses, taking them from good to great. It's a Neil book.
Oh.
Yeah.
I haven't read that.
Yeah, but you've lived it.
Yeah.
Because he applies what he reads.
Okay.
All right, best pass blocker. Lane Johnson. We already talked about him.
Covered.
Best team offensive line. You've been doing the offensive line rankings all year. Was this an easy one here?
And if you've read those, you'll know who it is because the Eagles have been number one in the preseason.
Wire to wire.
Yeah, preseason, every single week of the season, concluding final, whatever their final offensive line rankings were. The Eagles were number one the entire way. A big part of that is they had the same offensive line effectively the entire way, except for those 2 games, I think, at the end that Lane Johnson missed. So they had stability, and they didn't have a weak link. Like, they were one of the few offensive lines, maybe the only offensive line, where they just had 5 above-average starters, and then the above-average went up to all-pro caliber with guys like Lane Johnson.
Honorable mention to the Kansas City Chiefs, who, by the way, these last 2 years now have been the 2 best offensive lines that Patrick Mahomes has had.
Yeah.
And that's incredible given the fact that Eric Fisher was so solid at tackle. Mitchell Schwartz was a top 3 right tackle for the majority of his time in Kansas City, if not better. And that whole reshuffle a couple years ago, it definitely worked on the offensive line. There was questions about whether or not that was best for the team, but I think they've proven that this year as well, that it was. And then the Ravens, who of course picked up the great Morgan Moses for $5 million. So that's how you
definitely the difference there. Yeah,
it is.
They also got Ronnie Stanley back after
healthy
2
Ronnie
years
Stanley
on the shelf almost.
And Morgan Moses to replace Ali Villanueva.
Yeah, Stanley's made a huge difference to that offensive line when he came back, which really wasn't a foregone conclusion. I mean, you sort of think about what happened to him. Like, they rushed him back for week 1 last year, and he was so bad and so hurt and so less than 100% in that week 1 that after 1 game, less than 1 game, because I think he came out during the game, they shut him down for the year. Like, they went, no, evidently we have erred. You're going to take the entire year off and get healthy. And at that point, you're like, man, that was like an ankle injury has suddenly turned into a 2-year injury. That doesn't sound good for your ability to come back and be the player that you once were. And even this year, it wasn't like he wasn't ready for the start of the year. We were coming back, and these are not good data points to have. And then he comes back and looks exactly like Ronnie Stanley always looked. So huge break for them.
Let's go to best run blocker. You just talked about him a couple minutes ago. Chris Lindstrom from the Falcons.
Been an absolute force. The Falcons are the only team in the NFL who run the ball more than they pass the ball this year. Over 50% of their plays are runs. Chris Lindstrom's just been a bulldozer in the middle of that offensive line. I think the only guy that's really even comparable or in the argument is Trent Williams, who, again, has just been a freaking monster as a run blocker for the 49ers. But, yeah, Lindstrom's been amazing this year.
And best passer.
Mahomes.
Going Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
Just over Joe Burrow and Josh Allen, our top 3 graded quarterbacks, top 3 passers, and future's bright in the AFC here.
Yep.
With the youngsters. Mahomes, the oldest AFC quarterback in the playoffs here. Unless Huntley's older than him or something. I don't know if he starts.
Well, because
but with Lamar and Tua in the mix.
It's because Stetson Bailey isn't in the playoffs. Otherwise, he'd obviously be the oldest. Stetson Bennett.
SB the 4th?
SB the 4th?
It's the 4th.
There have been 3 previous iterations?
Yeah. Not nearly as accomplished as the 4th version.
Yeah. If he was in the playoffs, he'd obviously be the oldest guy.
We doing special teams too?
Yeah, of course we're doing special teams.
Best special teams player.
I knew you were just going to go, well, to hell with it. Special teams doesn't count. Let's not even read that award out.
Everything I do. If I could eliminate special teams from PFF just Ultimate, I would.
Obnoxious disrespect to these guys. Jeremy Reeves for the Washington Commanders. He was the guy that you saw the video, right, when he made the Pro Bowl.
That was good.
And Ron Rivera let him know, and he broke down in tears. I mean, he earned that. He was a legitimate, justified Pro Bowler. He's been the best special teamer in the NFL this year. And our special team award doesn't just go to players like Reeves who, play special teams, but it's like kicker, punter, return man. Anything that takes place in special teams is eligible for best special teamer. And Reeves is that guy over Justin Tucker, over the best punters in the league, over the best return guys. Jeremy Reeves has played almost 400 snaps of special teams, 5 different phases. Even the last few games of the season, he got starts on defense and was doing like special teams on the side. You know what I mean? He's playing as a full-time safety and then has to go there and play every special teams unit as well. The dude's been fantastic.
I think we liked him coming out of South Alabama, didn't we? As a safety?
I don't know.
I think I did.
You like everybody. Like your list of my guys is like 200 names long.
That's what you see that move? Louis Riddick's doing that now. He's got like a screenshotted list of all the players he likes from the second and third round, and whenever they do something well, he just like tweets the list.
Here we go. Yeah.
I'm going to do that this year.
I still need
Here's the 40 guys I'm looking from round 2 and 3 that I think you're going to.
It's like good as that is, I need a percentage attached to that. Like, what is the percentage of your list that is good?
Oh, you want my model? I'll just do my model, guys.
Not so
Model
much you, but like,
percentiles.
somebody who's going to approach that the way Lou apparently is. I'm working off your information here. But if Lou's like, here, I nailed him. That guy's good now. It's like, okay, but if he's the only guy from your list that's good, that's not a good strike rate. I need the percentages here.
Anyway, congrats to Jeremy Reeves, both on the Pro Bowl nod and the PFF award.
And because you're going to snub these guys again, let's read out some honorable mentions. Josh Woods from the Detroit Lions, George Odom, who I think won it last year or was very close to. Certainly we've given him some kind of recognition in the past.
The name rings a bell. I think we did something with him.
I forget it might have been All-Pro that we gave him special team spotlight, but he's definitely had recognition from us.
Multi-year star here, George Odom.
In the past. And then Daniel Carlson, who was the best kicker in the league this year. It's right like a coin flip again between him and Justin Tucker. They basically had the same season in terms of, I think each one of them has like a missed extra point, and then maybe like one missed field goal under 50 yards, and then everything else is like absurd kicks over 50 where they've missed.
Well, congrats to all the award winners, all the honorable mentions, everybody. That was fun. Yeah. That was great. PFF Awards. They're over at pff.com, PFF app.
Somebody else wanted to know from the chat, we'll continue this throughout the playoffs, but they wanted like a final tally on how we had done versus each other in picks. And despite finishing the year where I had 2 wretched weeks and you had 2 good weeks, one of which was your son picking, 2 of which,
Nobody
right?
wants to know this.
I finished, 27 games better than you? So that's it. That's the tally. How many playoff games are there? Can you even come back if we go 100%?
There's not 27 games.
Yeah. That's
There's
unfortunate.
6, 4, 4, 2, 1.
What's that?
17 games? We got a 17-game schedule. Well, if we let mine
the best
count
you can
double,
do is come
let
within.
mine count double at playoff time.
No.
Counts double.
No. We're not doing that. Maybe you got to fight. So what you've got to do is find scarigamis in the playoffs. That's what you need.
You ready for this? RG3.
Oh, no.
RG3 has tweeted out the key to winning in the playoffs. He's got data to back him up.
Did he win in the playoffs?
It doesn't matter.
Matters a little
He
bit.
got hurt in the playoffs, and they may have won 1 game, but definitely not 2.
Okay.
The key to winning in the playoffs is all caps running the ball.
Of course it is.
And all caps stopping the run.
I see.
Historically, teams have a 75% chance of winning in the playoffs when they outrush their opponent. In last year's wild card round, 5 of the 6 winners outrushed their opponent.
Yeah. So the thing with these guys is when you have former players and all these people that sort of get jobs on TV, there's a bunch of people that then feed them data, like researchers and statisticians and blah, blah, blah. But you need somebody that understands the mechanisms at work here. Otherwise, what you're doing is presenting that picture of the confirmation bias, the plane with all the holes in the wings, where they tried to they did a study on all the planes returning from the war. Like, where are the bullet holes from these planes? Because that's what we need to reinforce, right? If they're getting shot to pieces in the wings, let's beef up the wings. And then it took somebody pointing out, no, because the ones that got shot in the engines didn't make it back. Like, they're over enemy territory in a ditch somewhere. Like, that's what you need to beef up, not by definition, the ones with the holes in the wings are the ones that were able to fly all the way back and be okay. The ones that you need to fix are the ones that you don't see any holes in, because that's what terminally ended this plane cycle. So when you have people like, feeding the likes of RG3, and I don't want to single him out here, but you did.
I'm sorry.
They're feeding them information, right?
Yeah.
But nobody's telling them how to interpret the information. So they're like, well, it turns out that just running more yardage, that's going to win.
It feels like the smart researchers, because I agree with you. I mean, you get fed all these stats, right?
Yeah.
And it feels like the researchers could put a little asterisk and say correlation is not causation.
Yeah, but it feels tough to put that onus on the researcher, let me explain football to the all-pro.
Well, then don't put bad stats out there. Don't put bad stats out there.
But they're just going to give.
I don't blame RG3 and everybody. I mean, it's fine. I mean,
I'm pointing.
5 to 10 years ago, this tweet would just go out there and everybody would like it, or at the time they'd favorite it. And now people are going to dunk on him. They're all going to a lot of people are going to go dunk on RG3.
I'm just
and he's
pointing
going to wonder why.
to a flaw in the process. I don't have a solution for it, but somebody somewhere in TV land or somewhere, whoever is he working for ESPN? Is that what
Yeah.
So somebody in the ESPN mothership needs to start working on this problem, right? Like, we've got all these great ex-football guys, and then we have a team of research people, and they're connecting, but it's not leading where it's supposed to be because nobody's interpreting the numbers. They're just saying it and then saying, well, the obvious conclusion from this data point is X, but even if the unobvious solution is actually the right one.
The problem isn't just what you said, though, because obviously everyone's believed this their whole life, too. Everybody that's played, everybody that's heard people on TV, like this isn't just a data point that he read. It's the belief system.
But isn't that
most
one of
people
those
have.
things where, like, there's a lot of things where analytics generally is sort of pushing back against the tide, and a lot of it is still sort of up for debate, right?
Sure.
Like,
yeah.
how much is all these, but there's a couple of things that I think have been proven beyond a reasonable doubt, to use that term, right? One of them is play action works, right? You don't need to establish the run, Byron Leftwich, to run play action. You can simply run play action on the first play of the game. It will still work because play action works inherently. It doesn't require something else to happen beforehand for it to work. I feel like this is one of those things that's been proven. Like, we know that the teams that, like, running back has a great correlation to winning, not because running leads to winning, but because winning teams run to eat out the end of the game, to eat up the clock. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So this feels like one of those things where, yes, like, there's a world where we could be seen as arrogant and, just crapping on these things for things that are still kind of debated, But this isn't one of those things.
I mean,
this is something where somebody needs to save him from this.
There's also somebody on ESPN today who I won't name who said, now that the Dolphins know that Skylar Thompson's probably their quarterback, they need to go force 2 or 3 turnovers to give themselves a shot. He's like the defensive coach the defense coordinator guys to go out there and say, guys, we need 2 or 3 turnovers. It's like, man, tell me, how do you create that little magic bullet? How do you make that happen? Because it's not just Skylar Thompson week that you want to do that. You want to do that every week. How do you teach turnovers?
I don't hate that as much. I mean, I think you can go, well, look, there's a lot of plays where you kind of sell out for the turnover, or you play it a little bit safely. So no more safe this weekend. Let's just sell out. Go nuts. Like, go for the peanut punch more than the wrap. Go for the undercut for the play as opposed to the keeping one arm around, like the one arm bat where you have the other arm around the DB
Try to catch
or the receiver so that you can still make the tackle. If you miss it, don't forget it. Go 2 hands. Go for the interception. I think you can do that.
I mean, yeah, you can teach guys to be more aggressive. I don't think you can coach turnovers. I think you can
obviously, but the point being, like, if you're more aggressive in this game, hopefully that will lead to more turnovers in this particular occasion.
Well, we'll see. Not trying to pick on anybody, but yeah, and
except RG3 apparently.
Well, just to make sure that we're clear on this, yeah, like you said, it's because winning teams run the ball more because they're winning first.
I just feel like somebody needs to save him from that tweet.
Yeah, well,
also from that opinion.
Instead, everybody that I follow is probably going to go dunk on him and start some discourse.
Tweet you should tweet the picture of that plane with the holes in it to him. Just that.
No, not doing that. It's way more than a tweet.
No,
it's a big explanation.
Just the picture. That what's that? If you know, you know. Just
if you know.
Tweet that.
Can't stand when people say that, actually. If you know, you know. I'm out of here. We're out of here.
Yeah.
We got another 3-hour show tomorrow for 6 games. Sweet. So anyway, thanks to everybody for tuning in. A little fun awards, bets, the whole deal. If you do have more postseason bets, NFL podcast at pff.com. Send us your emails. And we'll be back again tomorrow previewing all of the super wildcard weekend action. We'll see you guys tomorrow.